In today's session, we will explore the theme and literary comparisons between poetry and other forms of literature, such as prose and drama. Our focus will be on understanding the structural elements that make these genres unique. Let's try reading a poem together. My cat is as soft as a fluffy cloud, and purrs a sound as quiet as a mouse. My dog is happy like a bounding ball, and barks as loud as a trumpet's call. My dad is tall as a sturdy tree, and strong like a gentle sea. Can you pick out a simile from this poem? Remember, a simile is a comparison that uses a word such as like or as to compare two things. Now, let's go over what makes a poem special. One of those things that makes a poem special is stanzas. That's a fancy word pretty much for poem blocks. A stanza is a group of lines in a poem. It's like a small block of texts. In some ways, it's like a paragraph in a story, but they are made carefully for rhyme and to make important words stand out. Rhythm and rhyme. Rhythm is the sound or beat of the poem. It gives the poem an almost musical feeling. Rhyme is when words sound the same at the end. Rhyme is when words sound the same at the end, like star and R. Rhyme makes a poem easy to remember. Think of the song Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. It's memorable because of the rhyme. Verse and meter, that's the beat of the poem. Verse is just another word for one line of a poem. Meter controls the main beat in the poem. Think of it like a drum. Meter gives the poem a steady beat and a clear pace. That's like the speed of the poem for reading. Figurative language. Poems use special language to make strong pictures in your mind. This is called figurative language. Similes compare two things using like or as, just like we picked out some similes from the poem we just read. One example of a simile is as brave as a lion. Metaphors say one thing is another thing. For example, time is a thief, meaning time takes things away quickly. You need to remember, figurative language is different from literal language. So I'm going to say it again. Figurative language is different from literal language. Now, what this means is literal language means exactly what it says, whereas figurative language leaves room for the poem to share deep feelings. For instance, the lion is brave. That's literal. Figurative language would be something like, the mouse was as brave as a lion. Now, when we get to stories, stories can sometimes be referred to as prose. Our stories or prose tend to have paragraphs. That's when it's got a big block of sentences together. The sentences in one paragraph will work together. They help to tell the story and teach us about the people, the characters, and the main idea and the theme. A lot of stories or prose will have chapters. That's when a story is long like a novel. It's separated into bigger parts. A chapter is like a large section of the story. Now, I know that's a lot of information. So there's three big differences between stories and poems to keep in mind. These are the big three. Poems use very short lines and small groups of dialogue called stanzas. Stories use long sentences and paragraphs and big parts called chapters. And then there's also plays, like what you might see performed on a stage live in front of you. Plays use talking, which is called dialogue, and are divided into acts and scenes. So if you remember nothing else about what the big three are, those are the big three that you really want to remember. Themes in poems. Now, some of you might already know what themes are, in which case this will just be some review. But every piece of writing has a main idea or a theme, like friendship, nature, courage. A poem might show friendship using pictures made of words, which is called imagery, and a certain beat or rhythm. A poem might say, words flutter like bees. This is a metaphor. It means the friend's words are fast, light, and gentle, not that actual bees are flying. A play or a story shows friendship through dialogue. That's what people say, and actions, meaning what the people do. The characters might simply say they care for each other, like, I will help you. The theme is shown with clear actions and words. Now, when we get to structural impact, that's how it looks. The way the words look on the page is actually important too. In a poem, the poet, meaning the person who writes the poem, decides exactly where to break a line. The line break can make a reader stop and feel suspense, or put emphasis, that stress, on a word. For example, if a poem says, I saw the shadow, and then cried loud, the break before loud makes the word stronger. Now, stories and prose don't usually do this. They use long sentences that go all the way to the edge of the page in normal paragraphs. They focus on telling the story smoothly and all together, though sometimes they might end on a cliffhanger at the end of a chapter or a page to make you more eager to turn to the next page or chapter. Let's try a bit of an activity together. I'm going to read a poem to you and then ask some questions. Let's see if you can answer them yourself. The hidden stream. The stream ran down the hill, as quiet as a cloud, and water gave a gentle thrill. It moved beneath the trees unbowed. The forest floor was a green rug, soft and cool beneath the air, where little rabbits gave a hug and sunlight danced without a care. The air was fresh and melodious, with notes from a hidden wren. The quiet water was so glorious, it begged a visit now and then. Question number 1. The poem says the stream ran down the hill, as quiet as a cloud. What is one word you could use instead of quiet that means almost the same thing? And here's a hint. Think about a sound you can't hear. So there's a couple different words you could use to answer this. Some examples are silent, still, or peaceful. Let's look for a second question. Question number 2. The poem uses a simile when it says the stream was as quiet as a cloud. What two things are the poem comparing? So the answer to this one is the two things being compared is the stream and a cloud. Now, here's a third question. Find the metaphor in the second stanza. What two things does the poem say are the same? So remember, the part of the poem we're looking at is the forest was a green rug, soft and cool beneath the air, where little rabbits gave a hug and sunlight danced without a care. The answer is the forest floor was a green rug. Now, fourth question, I want you to try explaining in your own words what the metaphor, the forest floor was a green rug, means. What is the person that wrote this trying to tell us about the forest floor? Because they could have just said the forest floor is green, but they didn't. They said it was a green rug. So what are they telling us? All right, so there's a lot of different words you could use to answer this. But as long as you said something talking about how the forest floor was soft, it was covered, and it was comfortable like a rug, or if you talked about how it was talking about the grass, all of those kind of answers would be correct. Next question. How many stanzas, that's the number of lines, the group of lines, does this poem have? So how many groups of lines are in this poem? If you said 3 stanzas, you are correct. Well done. Let's try a sixth question. Look at the rhyming words at the end of the lines. In the first stanza, which words rhyme? Now remember, the first stanza reads, "The stream ran down the hill, as quiet as a cloud, and water gave a gentle thrill. It moved beneath the trees unbowed." So which words rhyme? That means which ones have the same ending sound. So if you picked out some words that rhymed, good job. If you didn't or you struggled, that's okay. The answers for this one are hill, thrill, cloud, unbowed. Now, let's look for some other rhyming words, even words that aren't in the poem. Let's see if you can find anywhere around you. You can look at things in your room to give you ideas anywhere you want, to try and come up with 3 word pairs that rhyme, like cat and bat, mop and top. See if you can find 3 pairs of rhyming words yourself. Ready, set, go. All right, so if you were able to find some rhyming words, well done. Let's try one more question. This is the last one on this poem. If this were a prose excerpt, meaning a piece of a story, would it be divided into stanzas? Yes or no? And why or why not? If you're not sure about the reason but you know the answer, that's okay. We'll go over the why or why not. But I want you to try and figure out for yourself first, would it be divided into stanzas if it were a story instead of a poem? The correct answer is, drum roll please, no. Stories are usually divided into paragraphs, not stanzas. Let's focus on a step-by-step comparison of a poem versus a story. So the poem might read, "The gentle breeze whispers secrets, dancing through silent trees." Now, If that was a story instead, it might be written as the wind blew softly, the children listened to the rustling leaves and felt a mysterious calm. Now, let's break this down. Let's look at the structure first. The poem uses short lines. It uses action words. Little bit of new information. Action words can also be called dynamic verbs. These are words like whispers and dancing to make pictures. The story, in this case, the prose, uses full sentences and it looks like a paragraph. It uses words to describe the scene very clearly. Now, let's look at the theme. Both the poem and the story talk about the same idea. In this case, our theme for both of them is nature is calm and a little mysterious. They both show the quiet power of the wind. Now let's look at the language they use. The poem uses figurative language. It says things like the breeze whispers and dances. Can wind really whisper? No. This makes a strong feeling. It also has a musical sound. Remember earlier we talked about rhythm. Now, for the story, it uses descriptive language. It says the wind blew softly and the leaves were rustling. It is clearer about what happened to the children. Now, I've got a final question for you. Which one, the poem or the story, makes the mood, the feeling more vivid, stronger or clearer in your mind? Now, there is not a correct answer here because I'm asking for your opinion. Which one, the poem or the story, lets you create a better picture in your own mind about what is happening? Now, when you explain, make sure to practice using specific phrases from the poem or story to support your answer. Go ahead and try writing out your own answer. Do your best.